The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Welcome to our webinar on what is action research. This is the first webinar for 2016, and we're very excited because we have with us Anne Burns to present this webinar. I'm the co-presenter. I'm Aparna Jacob, Professional Support and Development Officer at English Australia, and Anne Burns, as you know, is Professor of TESOL at the School of Education at UNSW and key reference person on our action research project. If you can hear me, could you please type in your responses? I'd like to make sure that before we begin, you can see my screen and you can hear me. Yep, fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you for that. Thanks, everybody. We are expecting a lot more people to join us, but we might just get started now. As you can see on my screen, for 2016, the Action Research Program, the theme for this year is Learning-Oriented Assessment and Technology. The call for the expression of interest went out in December, and just to remind you, they are due by 29th of January. The purpose of this webinar is hopefully to give you more clarity on what action research is, what the research focus for this year is, and hopefully this will help you put together your applications and get them in by the deadline this year. The plan for today, we're first going to look at the program context and a bit of background to the Action Research Program. Anne is then going to take us through what action research is. She will also be discussing the program focus for 2016. We will then look at the structure of the Action Research Program and look at some details that are quite important. The next bit, we will look at responsibilities of both the employers and the teachers who participate in the project. This is quite important because there are quite a few responsibilities for employers to consider before they send their teachers to the program, but also for teachers to consider before they can take part in this program. And hopefully we could answer a lot of your questions by the end of the session. But please do feel free to type in your questions as we go. Do not wait till the end. If something occurs to you, please type in your questions and I can gather them and relay them to Anne at the end of our session. So let's get started. The Action Research in ELICOS Program was an English Australia initiative that was first piloted in 2010. This was done in partnership with Cambridge English Language Assessment, and they were called Cambridge ESOL at that stage. This was part of English Australia's strategic plan to raise levels of professional practice in ELICOS, and we're very proud of this program and some of the outcomes that we see every year, and we'll talk a bit more about that as we go. Anne Burns had worked on a similar project run by the Australian government for migrants, and when we approached her, she was very keen to be part of this, and that's how Anne Burns came to be the key reference person on the ELICOS Action Research for ELICOS program. This program is open to any ELICOS teacher in Australia, as long as they're employed and teaching on an ELICOS course registered under CRICOS. Now, this is quite important. The program is jointly funded by Cambridge English Language Assessment and the employers, and I'll explain how this works as we go. We've had 56 teachers participate in this program so far. The program is now in its 6th year, and I'll show you pictures of participants who've been part of this program since 2010. In 2013, the Action Research in ELICOS program won the IEAA Excellence Award, and you can see the certificate. I put it up there for you. This is how the program is managed. Cambridge English provide the funding for the program. Now, Cambridge English Language Assessment also publish the findings and the reports each year that come out of the Action Research Program. And you would have seen these through the research notes that are sent out to member colleges every time they come out, especially the Action Research editions. You would also be able to see these on the Cambridge website. Please look for research notes. The next edition is coming out early this year, so please keep an eye out for them. These will contain the reports from the 2015 Action Research Program. Anne Burns, of course, provides the expertise in action research for the project. We also have a reference group that we rely on for guidance, support, and they're also the judges for the Action Research Award. The reference group is made up of 2 members from English Australia, 2 members from Cambridge English Language Assessment, and of course, Anne Burns. English Australia provide the expertise in terms of project managing the program. Now, what the program goals are, as I mentioned at the start, one of the strategic aims of English Australia is to facilitate higher levels of professional development among our centres and support our teachers in what they do best, which is teach. The aim of the Action Research Program is to equip teachers with skills needed to identify gaps in their teaching or within their classroom. Now, what I have seen and what's come to me through my interactions with participants in the program is all teachers have brilliant ideas in the classroom, but not enough time or energy to explore these ideas in depth. And this is what the program allows. It allows teachers the space to explore an issue or a gap that they have identified in great detail, and also provides them with the research skills needed to explore these gaps. The other thing the program allows is for teachers to share these outcomes widely. We provide platforms. We enable teachers to, for example, the English Australia Conference is a great platform to share this research and their findings. There are several avenues open to the participants to share their outcomes throughout the year and in the following years. Employers often provide opportunities for teachers to go overseas and present at international conferences. There's a lot of different ways in which teachers then go on to share their findings and learnings from the projects they've done. In terms of outcomes for teachers, the first outcome for teachers is the way in which they're actively involved in classroom research. One of the things I noticed is that teachers often perceive research as something that is inaccessible to everyday teachers. It's something that is in the realm of academia for academics and not for teachers. This is what the Action Research Program is trying to change this perception. By giving teachers the tools to critically think and examine their own teaching, reflect on their own practice, it leads to greater engagement for teachers with their own practice, with their own students, and it leads to a tremendous amount of teacher development and teacher growth. The Action Research Program attracts teachers and participants from around Australia, as we saw earlier. And this leads to a wide network for teachers who are part of this group. Now, groups often form very close bonds because they're researching the same area. They're looking at it from different angles. They exchange ideas and techniques. And what happens by the end of the 6 or 7 months that they're part of the program, they develop very strong connections and often keep in touch for the rest of their careers. Engagement with research and academic researchers is very, very crucial. And this is one of the most beneficial outcomes because they go on to present at research conferences internationally. And of course, further professional development. I might now hand over to Anne to take us through what action research is. So Anne, please bear with me while I hand you the controls. So Anne, over to you now.
Okay, and good afternoon, everybody, and thanks very much for joining us. Very exciting that you're able to participate in this short session as an introduction to what might be happening for you if you join this program. As Aparna said, the program is based on the idea of action research, and this may or may not be an unfamiliar kind of idea for you. It may be that you've already had some contact with research or with action research, but it's very typical that people often think that doing research has to be a very sort of experimental or scientific kind of process. These are the kind of images that often come to mind, and I'm clicking here and not finding a response.
So Anne, there's a slight delay.
Oh, there's a slight delay, right. Ah, okay, that's better. Okay, so these are some of the sort of images that often come to mind when people think about research, that it has to be something to do with people in white coats in laboratories, that you have to set up experiments, that you have to have control groups and experimental groups, and you have to compare the outcomes from both these kinds of groups, and then do a lot of statistical analysis, so that you can measure and report and quantify on the things that you're finding. So it's very typical for people to have these kinds of ideas about research, and the notion that research is rather a difficult thing for people to do. But if you're at all familiar with the idea of action research, you probably realize that it's a very different kind of research that we're involved in. And it's not this kind of measurement-oriented or very quantitative form of research that is often introduced to people as the way to do research. In contrast, what we have is a much more collaborative idea about working with peers, but also looking at issues that are particularly of importance to you as a teacher, the kinds of things that you may have been curious about for a while, or that you may have noticed as being something that you'd like to amend or look into your own classroom. Now I'm trying to get to the next slide, and I'm not having too much success. So, here it comes. You'll have to bear with me, I think, as we go through this. It's being a little slow. So we can look at action research in a very different way, and I guess the first thing to say about it, which I've written quite a lot about myself in a book I published in 2010, and which is a book that we use in the project itself, in the program itself. So first of all, we can say that it's a much more self-reflective and systematic and critical approach to inquiry. So action research is built on the idea of being able to reflect on what you do in your own practical circumstances. But because it's rather different from the kind of intuitive ideas or the thinking on our feet ideas that we have in classrooms every day, it's systematic, because what we're interested in is finding some evidence and doing the research in a rather more structured and systematic way than we usually have time for in everyday classroom life. And also we're standing back to some extent and looking with a critical eye on what we do in the normal daily practices of the classroom. So it's what we might also call a critical approach to inquiry, where we're taking something and looking at it through a critical lens or through a more objective lens to find out what's actually going on here. And the second point will come up soon, I hope. So a very important aspect of action research, which doesn't necessarily apply to other kinds of research that you may be familiar with, is that the people involved in the research are not only the participants of the research, or the subjects, if you like, in more experimental terms, but they're also the researchers. So when you engage in action research, you wear two hats. You're a researcher, but you're also a participant in the process. And you can apply this to other people who might get involved in the research too. Your students, or perhaps other teachers, colleagues, perhaps even administrators or managers within your own organization. So it's very much a participatory approach to doing research. And the aim of the process, as I think I've already been talking about, is to identify situations that may be problematic. Now, by problematic, I don't mean things that are problems or difficulties or negatives in the classroom. Problematic is really looking at issues that are worth problematizing. In other words, they're worth looking into, they're worth discovering something about, or they're worth understanding much more deeply than we normally have time to do. So it's problematic in a kind of positive sense, rather than a negative sense of saying something in the classroom is a problem. And again, we're looking to bring about some kind of change here. So the change that we're looking for is not the kind of change that we base on our intuitive assumptions, but change that is based on evidence and data that we collect in the classroom, information about what's going on, so that we can look at it in a more solid and systematic kind of way. I should add also that I think that action research is not only about change, it's also about much deeper understanding, much deeper appreciation of the kind of context that we work in, and also the kind of students that we work with, and what their needs and our needs are as teachers in the classroom. The reason that I'm very passionate about action research is that, for me, it democratizes research. I've worked for a long time as a researcher, and I've never been happy about the division between researchers and practitioners, because for me, research is something that should be open to all people who want to be involved in it, and it should also be informed by the practical or social issues that are important in our daily lives. So the democratic aspects of action research appeal to me in that they open up the possibility of research for anybody who really wants to take a kind of an exploratory look at their own situation and to see what can be done to turn that situation into the best possible classroom world that it can be for themselves and for their students. So that excites me about action research. Okay, so the issues that are chosen are usually things that engage participants in their own social situation. That is, they're exciting to investigate because it's something that are very relevant to the situation that you work in every day and to the practical issues that are important in that situation. And the goal of the research is to act positively, and to put into place some deliberate kind of action or even intervention so that you can understand and change or enhance what is already happening and to make the situation better for everybody. So the whole process integrates a set of ideas which are to do with action, with research, and also, very importantly, reflection on what's happening as you go along. And when you engage in an action research process, you find that reflection begins fairly early on in the process because you need to really think through how to put the actions in place, how to investigate them, how to produce information about what's happening, and also what those actions and the evidence that you're collecting actually mean, what kind of meanings they have in the classroom situation. And the focus is on, this is a rather technical word, but I'm going to introduce this. The focus is on praxis. In other words, the idea that we make reflections on our practice, and in turn, these give us deeper understandings of practice, or we could call those deeper understandings, if you like, our own personal theories of what makes our practice into what it is. And there's quite a lot of interest now in the personal theories that teachers create to articulate or to think about their own practice. And that doesn't necessarily align with some of the grand theories that we might think of, which are out in our field, the should theories, the ones that say how language should be taught or how language should be learned. Those are not always the things that best inform the particular situations in classrooms on a daily basis. So we can develop our own kind of articulation of our own reflections on practice also as teachers. So let's look a bit more at the processes in action research, and we've drawn in our project, in our program for ELICOS, on a diagram or a framework, if you like, which was developed quite a long time ago by some researchers in Australia who initiated the idea of action research from a critical perspective in the Australian context. And it's a useful plan because it gives you a framework of 4 stages. It's not necessarily as clear-cut as this when you actually do it, but it certainly gives you a sort of set of principles to operate the process of doing action research. So the first thing that usually happens is that we develop a plan to inform some action which will improve what's already happening, improve, change, or help us to understand what's happening. So first thing to do is to have some kind of plan of what you want to do. The next stage in this process is to act, to implement the plan. So what happens in the workshops that we run in Sydney is that most of the workshop is around the planning of what you do in the project you intend to put into place in the classroom. What happens after that is that you go back to the teaching centre, your teaching centre, to implement the plan in some way and to see what happens. Then the next thing is that you observe the effects of what's happening in the context where it occurs. So this means observation may be broadly understood to mean collecting some information or some data about it, and that's where the research aspect comes in. So on the one hand, you've got the action, the teaching, if you like, in the classroom, the practical aspect, and then on the other hand, you've got some kind of systematic observation or data collection about what's going on, so that you've got a basis on which to look at what's emerging from the research. And then finally, you can reflect on what's happening as a way of further planning your research, or maybe even changing direction, informing further actions, and going through a succession of stages. In practice, some teachers find that they go through several cycles. It's not necessarily just one cycle, but there may be ongoing cycles as you discover, as you go deeper and you discover more interesting issues arising to the surface because of what you're investigating. So some people like to see this diagram, which is the one that Kemmis and McTaggart developed on the basis of their model or their plan, if you like. And you can see that it suggests that there's a set of processes or a spiraling kind of circle or set of cycles that go on here. So it's not necessarily just one reflective cycle, but there may be 2 or more, depending on how far you want to go and how deeply you want to go to investigate the issues. So this year, as Aparna just noted, our focus is going to be on learning-oriented assessment and technology. Learning-oriented assessment is something which is now of particular interest to Cambridge English. They're doing a lot of work on this area. And as many of you will know, Cambridge English have traditionally been an organisation which is which is related and which researches into assessment. So the whole area of assessment is becoming much more interested in what can happen in the classroom in terms of assessment. And the idea that learning-oriented assessment is related to classroom activities, the kind of feedback or the kind of orientation towards further learning that can come through good activities in the classroom and also feedback on those activities to students. So the focus that we have in learning-oriented assessment is definitely the one that's related to increasing the opportunities for learning. So the increase of learning or the development of learning is a key aspect of learning-oriented assessment. And what is meant by this is that the activities that are put into place are integrated, so that the assessment is integrated into the language learning activities. So the idea of the activities that a teacher might use always has built into it the idea of what is the learning base for all of these activities? What will the students get out of it in terms of being able to develop further? This is sometimes known as feeding forward. So in other words, the activities are based on feeding forward so that they assist the future learning of the students, and that the teacher can see what kind of things need to be done in order to take the students' learning further. So they have both a learning orientation but also teaching orientation, in that they may have the possibility of diagnosing what needs to be done so that learning can take place in a more effective way. So based on teachers' decisions about what they observe in their students' learning, other activities can be developed, and the activities can also be the basis for some form of assessment that happens for the student. Looking at, for example, whether their writing has improved or whether they are now using particular expressions for spoken interaction, or perhaps whether their pronunciation is developing as a result of the kinds of activities which are allowing them to pick up and learn from feedback they've been given. So the learning-oriented assessment is also integrated with ways of recording progress that the students are making. And we've put new ways of recording into this line because, of course, what we want to take up in this particular program this year is the idea of technology. In the past, it's not always been the case that technology has been integrated with activities for learning. So it'll be very interesting, I think, to see some innovative and creative ideas coming into this program so that the use of technology can be the basis for the assessment. So the focus is on ideas like learning-oriented assessment and curriculum development. So it could be that in your centre or in your program there is new curriculum development going on, and you want to look at how you can integrate learning-oriented assessment through the use of technology into that curriculum development. So that could be a broader area for looking at your research, how it links up with things that are changing in your centre, in your college, in terms of larger curriculum developments. Or it could be more specific to your own classroom, something that you're very interested in from your own experiences. So it could be that you've been experimenting with technology, but you can turn that towards looking at assessment that can come from the use of technology. It's also connected with the ideas like learner autonomy and how to make learners more self-directed in their learning through also bringing in a technology and helping them to become more able with technology that's at their disposal. And it also could be related to your own professional developments. Are there ideas that you want to experiment with, or is there professional development in your centre that could be focused on the whole idea of learning-oriented assessment? Are you able to work with other teachers and to do some professional development that helps integrate the assessment and the technology, and enable you to learn more about that. In the past, we've had teachers, for example, who felt very self-confident about using technology. So it was a professional development experience for them to learn how to use different types of technology, and that can be focused on the area of assessment, so that the technology that's being taken up and used can be connected with assessment practices that are going on in the classroom. So these are some of the main areas that we've suggested. They're by no means definitive. You can certainly look at other topics that you might be interested in, as long as they come within the general focus or the general scope of learning-oriented assessment and technology. There's a little note at the bottom which says that research questions don't have to be defined until after the initial workshop. And this is very much the case. At this stage, we really want initial ideas from you. We want to get some suggestions about how you could turn your ideas into a focus for this program. It doesn't mean to say that they're completely identified and that they're completely wrapped up at this stage, because the whole purpose of the workshops that we have is to take you through a process where you refine your project as you go along. And for that, you will get a lot of support and assistance from me, from Aparna, and certainly from other colleagues who come into the program. As Aparna said, there's a lot of very close connections which are made between teachers, and teachers often feel that they've really gained a lot from each other's ideas, the chance to share, the chance to make suggestions, and to support each other along the way. So that's certainly the case. Okay. Go on to the program outline. So if you come into this program, this is the kind of experience that you will go through. What we do is we start off with an introductory workshop. This usually takes place in March of each year, the early part of March, and the dates will be sent out to people who are going to be part of the program this year. At the introductory workshop, we talk again about action research and people's understandings of action research, and we look at what it means and what the process means, and we also consider initial ideas that people have had and what their starting points are. We develop those plans a little bit further, as I said, so that by the end of the workshop you feel really prepared and supported to go away and begin the action part of things, where you put the projects into place in your centre and you start doing the teaching and practical aspects, as well as thinking about how you can at the same time conduct the research as you go along. So the projects happen for several months at your centres before we come back to Sydney for workshop 2, which is usually right at the end of July or the beginning of August. So you have about 3 or 4 months to get your project going. And it's not uncommon for people to feel a bit disoriented at the beginning, because the first few weeks are really about starting it up, trying to find your feet, getting going, and really thinking about what this is all about, and in fact what you're doing here. So you do need that amount of time to get things started and to help them to sort of get on their feet and keep going. The second workshop is where we come back and we talk about what everybody's been doing so far. So everyone has a chance to express their ideas, update us on their research, and also tell us about what's been going on, or any issues that have arisen, or things that are unclear, uncertain, any changes of direction that you feel needs to be made. And sometimes people have gained insights from the first cycles about things that perhaps could be done differently. So this is a good point at which to think about how you want to continue and where the research should proceed from the second workshop. Then there's a period of going back and wrapping up the project, and this happens from the end of July to the middle of September. In the middle of September, there's the third workshop, And this third workshop happens the day before the English Australia conference, because at the conference everybody comes together again and there is a presentation about the research, which I'll talk about a little bit more about in a minute. But the third workshop is an opportunity to finalise the research, to round it off, as it were, and to again update everybody in the group about what's been happening and how things have concluded. It's also an opportunity to start practicing the presentations for the conference. And in fact, some of you may have even seen some of these presentations at English Australia conferences, so you may have a bit of an idea of what's involved. Unfortunately, we don't have a long time to talk about the research at the conference, but it's certainly the case that every teacher gets an opportunity to present ideas about their research. But you're not left to your own devices completely between each set of working on your projects, because we also have other ways of supporting you. One is through a wiki, which means that people can share ideas on the wiki, can update themselves on deadlines that need to be met for the research and so on. We also have Skype meetings, and these meetings are ones that I organise with the participants in the project. This is on an individual basis. It's not a group Skype meeting, but it's an opportunity for me and for the teachers or the pairs of teachers working together on their projects to be able to discuss what's happening and to look at issues that have come up that you're not sure about, or that questions that you want asked. And it's been very successful from the point of view of most of the teachers in the project in helping them to keep the research going and also to address anything that they're not quite certain about. Of course, we're always available on email, so email contact goes through the whole project, and all of this takes about 6 or 7 months, as I've described, from March up until about September, more or less. Sharing outcomes is an extremely important part of this whole program. And that means for the ELICOS industry, but also much more broadly, as Aparna has suggested already, beyond Australia. And we have quite a strong reputation for this program overseas now. This is the 7th year of the program, so people have become very familiar with it. And it's been regarded as a model for other programs in different parts of the world. In fact, English UK has copied our model and are now working with teachers there in a similar kind of way. They're in the 2nd year of the program. They started it up last year. It was very successful. They had 6 teachers working in that program, and they're continuing along the same lines as the one that we've developed here. So sharing our outcomes has been extremely important for us, and this is done in a number of ways. I've already talked about the presentation at the English Australia conference, and that's one which we rehearse at the 3rd workshop, and people get a chance to share and also get a chance to talk to other participants at the conference during the breaks about the research that they've done. Quite a number of the teachers have also done presentations elsewhere, and this ranges from presentations in their own centres to presenting at local or state meetings or state conferences, to national conferences, and actually to international conferences too. Quite a few of the teachers have presented, for example, at the AREP conference in the UK. Other teachers have presented in different places such as Hong Kong. They've managed to get some funding and support from their centres. So there are lots of presentations that have now been done overseas by the various different teachers who've been in the program. As Aparna said, 56 of them now. And also publications, and the publications consist of a report that everybody writes to record their project, and this is published in the Cambridge English Journal Research Notes, and you can have a look at that online. It's freely available to download. The last one, which was published, is number 60, so you can have a look for that one, but there are several others which have been published from 2010. And those are good, give you good ideas of the kind of thing that's been done. But apart from that publication, We also ask people to contribute to a colourful brochure which is produced for other teachers at ELICOS. In discussions with teachers, we realise it's not the case that everybody's going to pick up and read a research volume or research notes. So some teachers just want a quick look at what's been done to share ideas and to get ideas for their own classrooms. So the brochure helps people to see at a glance the ideas and the projects that have been done over the course of the year. So we would ask participants in this year's programme to do the same and to provide very short accounts and photographs and colourful additions to the brochure that's set out and which is produced in time for the conference so that other people can see it. But quite a number of other publications have been done by teachers in the programme and have been published in international journals. Some teachers have now enrolled in PhD or master's programmes as a result of participating in the Action Research in ELICOS programme. And so their publications are spreading across the world as well as they describe what they've done for their action research projects and how that's affected their professional development. So it's a very rich programme, and as you can see, it has the idea of sharing outcomes as broadly as possible, both within Australia and in your own colleges, but also elsewhere. So, just to think a little bit more about your responsibilities as you come into the programme and who is responsible for what. As a participant in the programme, teachers will agree to participate voluntarily. And it's voluntarily for the whole period of the project. It's very unfortunate if people don't realise from the beginning that you do need to come to all the workshops, you do need to complete the research, and you do need to go through the whole programme on a voluntary basis. Now, if really, really difficult situations turn up, and we have had some of those in the past where people have been sick or other things have happened in their lives, of course we understand that it's not always possible to continue. But the assumption when you come into the programme is that you will be there for the duration. So by participating voluntarily, you're agreeing to be there during the course of the whole project and for that year. That means attending all the workshops and any other forums that take place around the programme. Mainly it's the workshops, but it could be other presentations that sometimes turn up. For example, in Sydney, we have an opportunity to present at the University of Sydney annual TESOL Research Network. So Sydney-based teachers often get a chance to present there too. You undertake the research. That's an agreement that's also assumed when you start the programme, and to record the progress of the project that you do, and to report on the progress and the outcomes. As far as the employers or the managers are concerned, they too have some responsibilities. They must agree to release teachers for a minimum of 6 days plus another day, to give you some time to do the research and to write up the research. They must also support teachers to attend the conference, so that's built into the agreement that they sign when you put in your expressions of interest. And they also should be able to minimise the non-teaching load so that there's a little bit of leeway for undertaking this research. Also, it's very beneficial if the employer and manager agrees to provide opportunities for teachers to share the project progress and outcomes. And this could be in both formal or informal ways. For example, looking for opportunities for teachers to speak at staff meetings, for example, or to give them the chance to work with other colleagues who may want to become part of the program that you're doing. That's been very much the case in quite a few of the projects that teachers have done, and that's had enormous benefits. It's had a sort of ripple effect out to other teachers and also to the college, which has been seen as extremely valuable. So the key points again: The research topic doesn't need to be fully developed at this stage. It could be decided or developed or thought about even further during the first workshop that we hold. Secondly, as far as ethics approval is concerned, I have made an application to the University of South Wales for ethics approval for this program, and that has been granted. So all of you who come into the program will be covered from the point of view of ethical aspects of the program, and also we will explain to you in the first workshop what needs to be done about gaining ethics approval from the people that you work with within your own colleges. But basically we're covered for the ethical aspects of the program. And then thirdly, it is crucial, as it says here, crucial exclamation mark, in fact, as it says here, to get support from the employer or the manager. The experience is much better for teachers whose managers are behind them, who see the value of doing research and who really want people to be involved and can see that it will be beneficial for the college. This has been the case for private colleges, for university-based colleges, for the range of colleges and centres which are within the ELICOS program in Australia. So that is a very important part from our point of view, and one that really helps teachers to effectively benefit from the program.
Thanks, Anne. Just to add to the last point that Anne made about support from the employers, what I'd like to also add here is that English Australia pays for the flights and accommodation for the first 2 workshops that you attend in Sydney. And these workshops, just to give you an idea of the timelines, the first one would be in March, the second one around July or August, and then the last one, which is the 3rd workshop at the conference, would be in September. Now, English Australia pays for the first 2 workshops in terms of flights and accommodation. For the 3rd one, you get registration for the conference itself, but for the 3rd workshop, the employer pays for the flights and accommodation and needs to agree to be able to send you to the conference. We've found that managers who support the participants, it's a great team effort, because it is a challenging program, as other participants would tell you, but highly rewarding for managers and the participants. Having that support is crucial, because you will need some time off your admin duties, for example, to do extra research or just time to think and reflect and plan. And this is where your academic manager can make life much easier for you. English Australia keeps in touch with the managers and provides updates, regular updates on your progress. And so we also are part of supporting you. And of course, there is Anne. If you can contact Anne via us if you have any questions about your research or any other aspects of the program. These are our participants so far. As you can see, the pioneers in 2010, and then 2011, 12, 13, 14, and 15, the latest group. Very excited to meet the group in 2016. So I'm hoping this webinar has already given you some ideas to start thinking and putting your proposals together. Now, by being selected to be part of the Action Research Program for 2016, you automatically become eligible for the Action Research Award. The final papers and reports that you submit go to the research reference group for judging, and that's how the winner for the Action Research Award is selected. The picture, sorry, I'm not sure if you can see me pointing to the picture. Sally, Crane, and Elizabeth First were the winners for the 2015 Action Research Award. They're very excited about it. And I've just put up a video, a testimonial from Sally and Elizabeth. They had a very interesting project where their project brought together different departments from their university, and they're from the University of Tasmania, on how to help students research library resources and put together academic papers. what ended up happening is they produced an animated video to help the students in their research, and this was actually researching research. It's amazing. And in the process, library staff got involved, other teachers from the staff room got involved. Everyone became so curious about Sally and Elizabeth's work that it really inspired others. And when we talk about the ripple effect of the action research projects that you undertake, this is what we mean. It has far-reaching implications for the entire organization, not just the teachers that are part of it. It goes out through the staff room to other departments and overall for the organization. So these are some of the winners over the past few years. Now, for those thinking about writing their expression of interest, please look at some of the links I will be providing in the last slide in this presentation. You will have ample information in terms of looking at past projects, the kind of topics that were produced, the summaries you will be able to read. All of this should help you put together your own report. As Anne mentioned several times today, it's important to think about what exactly you want to look at in your teaching practice or in your classroom. It has to be connected to the theme, obviously. So please have a look at the theme and the suggested subtopics that Anne took us through today in great detail. The word limit is 500. I would highly recommend sticking to the word limit. And is there anything else you'd like to highlight?
Thanks, Aparna. No, I think the first thing to say is that action research is not a big, huge project. Nobody's putting in an expression of interest to do a PhD here. So think big, act small. We mean what we say, that it really should be small scale, and the more focused and the more straightforward your research is, the better. It should be really focused. It's okay to be creative and to think dreams, but really the project is a small scale one, and we're not, it's not the kind of experience you may have had if you were doing a master's degree or a certificate degree in the past. We really want small scale projects that can get you going into doing the research. The clearer that you can be about what it is, the better. So don't bring too many different factors into things at once. Try to keep it small, try to keep it straightforward so that it's a manageable project that you feel you can do well. Relevant to the theme is important. We really want to get some creative ideas about links between technology and learning-oriented assessment. So please check that what you're putting in is around this theme, that it can show in some way that you're trying to link these things and that you're trying to look at them in a deeper way. And the word limit is also important. We have experienced in the past people on the reference group saying that they would like to eliminate some of the applications because they're so long. So we have only asked for 500 words because that is not a lot to write. It gives us a flavour of what's required, and it shouldn't be a long piece of work for the reference group to have to look through. So do try and keep as closely as possible to that word limit. I don't know that I'd want to add any more at this stage. I think keeping it focused, keeping to the word limit, and saying as clearly as you possibly can what you think you will do in the research are the main things.
Thanks, Anne. Just before we move on to questions, I'd like to provide you with a couple of useful links. Please have a look at the English Australia website, and in particular the Action Research section. This link will take you directly to the Action Research section, where you will be able to see all of the action research projects starting 2010. You will also be able to read summaries from the past year's projects, and a lot of information about the program itself in terms of some of the points we discussed today, like responsibility, eligibility criteria, timelines, and so on. And if any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me directly. You will also find testimonials recorded. What we've done is we've asked past participants and managers who've supported participants in the project to tell us about their experience, so that potential participants could understand what they were getting into and also see the benefits of this program, please have a look at Anne's website. And of course, if you need to contact Anne, please send me an email and I'll pass on the questions to her. We'll now take questions. So please type in your questions and I'll start reading them out for Anne. So Anne, one of the first questions we have is, does the expression of interest outline need to follow a particular format?
No, it doesn't need to follow a particular format, but I think it would be helpful to say what the topic is that you've chosen with the title, then to say what the issue is that you've identified in your classroom, whether you have some plans for practical activities that you could do, and some initial ideas about how you could go about collecting data. Would you interview students? Would you provide a questionnaire? Would you observe the classroom? What is it that you're going to do to try and address the issue that you're interested in? And I think if you have those three things more or less in place, that will give us an idea of what it is that you would like to do with the research. I hope that helps. But if there are any other, if there's any other information needed, I can give it.
Thanks, Anne. One of the other questions we've received is, do we need to reference existing research in this application?
No, you don't necessarily have to do that, but if you've been inspired or made curious about something by a particular piece of research or a particular author that you know about, you can put that in. We don't want long lists of references, though, at this stage.
We have another question about someone who is a first-time researcher, and the question is about if they need prior academic research experience to be part of the action research program.
No, not at all. One of our award winners was a new teacher. She'd only been teaching for 2 years. She'd never done research before. So it really sets you off on a path of being interested in research. You don't have to have any prior research experience at all, because all the support that you get is part of the workshops and the process for the whole program.
Thanks, Anne. I'm just checking. We have 3 minutes left, and I'm just wondering if there are any other questions for Anne or for myself. Please type them in now. If you do think of more questions, please feel free to email them through. And thank you very much. I think there was a lot of information for everybody to take away and process, but if you do have more questions, please send them through. I'd like to thank Anne for providing us with all that information, and thank you also to those who attended today. I hope you found that useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I hope to see some of you in the program.
Thanks, Anne. Bye-bye.
Bye.